the individuals that have an experience describe as that experience. So you just go to all these different cultural groups. What do you feel about blood? You know, what do you feel about water? What do you feel about life, etc. Right? And you just record everything they say about all of those different topics. And then you don't do anything with that. That's it. That's what your job is, to record the phenomenological experience of all these different people and all these different cultures on all these different things. That's what you do. So it's kind of an interesting approach to that, right? But so for Kant, accept that all of our experience that's going on inside of our head is the phenomena of our experience. What makes it possible for us to have that experience? And first off, he says there has to be an I that's having the experience. And so, well, you might call it an ego, whatever you want to call it, right? The thing is, you can't actually experience the I, because the I is the subject that's having the experience. So you can't look at yourself and say, aha, I am a persistent self, Mr. Jung. See, it's there, it was there yesterday. No, you can't see it. You can't see it.
The main character can't see themselves from an outside perspective.
Strictly speaking, yes. Because you're always the one who's asking that question. And you can't look inside yourself and not see an object for yourself. So this is actually pretty cool, because what Kant leads to Hegel, God bless you, Gesundheit, gute zdrowie, a votre santé, help, I'm locked in. You know, we do that because, you know, when you sneeze, your spirit leaves your body. And before the devil has a chance to sneak in, we want to bless you right away so that God gets in there first.
That's how I started.
That was a squirrel. Had nothing to do with
A squirrel?
a squirrel.
Where? What the heck?
A squirrel? A squirrel is like squirrel.
Oh, that kind of. I thought you meant like an actual squirrel. You're talking about a dog finding a squirrel?
Yeah.
Like
Doug
Doug
from up, you know.
From up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Squirrel. You know, that kind of squirrel. So the I, you cannot actually see. And as a result, Hegel will piggyback on Kant and tell us, aha, so I have the subject of the experience and the object. So even when you are thinking about yourself, you're thinking about a conceptual object or a conceptual schema that you think of as yourself. But it's not really yourself, because you are the one having the thought that that's you. Right? So there's a gap between the subject and the object of your experience, right? And this turns out to be absolutely terrific for Jean-Paul Sartre, because in French you think of the en soi, the in itself, the an sich for Hegel, the in itself, that's the subject of the experience, right? The en soi in French, and then you've got the pour soi. Oops. Oh, I don't know how that got to be computational neuroscience, but there it is. Ah, I've never heard of that before, but there it is. Kind of interesting. But for Jean-Paul Sartre, the en soi is my subjective side. The pour soi is the being for me, right? And what's neat with Sartre is that there's a gap between those two And what is that gap between you and the you that you're thinking of as yourself? Nothing. There's nothing there. Which in French is le néant, right? Nothingness. And so Sartre's big book is called Being and Nothingness. Notice being and nothingness. Right? So, and so for Sartre, and this is existentialism, I exist, but I have to create myself constantly. I'm responsible for how I appear to myself. So I'm constantly responsible for not just myself, but for the entire world as I see it. I'm responsible for the way the world appears to me. I'm responsible for all the horror. And as a result, I feel nauseous once I realize I'm the guilty person here. The world is so screwed up because of my own lack of ability to fix it. Right?
It sounds like a people pleaser.
French love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very depressing, actually. Okay. So the self is separate from the phenomena, so I can't actually ever see that self, because the self, at the moment that I'm trying to see it, is the self that's having the experience of me trying to see myself, even if I'm looking in a mirror and so on. So the self is not part of phenomena. It's outside of phenomena. And besides that, if we go back to John Locke, who talks about the thing in itself, remember, there's all of my secondary qualities of my experience, right? I see your blue bottle, I see your blue bag, I see all this stuff, but all of that stuff is secondary qualities because they're all being interpreted by my senses, but there must actually be the thing in itself that I'm seeing, right? And so for Kant, the other is the thing in itself, das Ding an sich, right? The thing in itself. And notice that I can't actually see myself, nor can I actually see the thing in itself. They're both outside of phenomena, but my transcendental method tells me that they both must be there. So I know this a priori to any experience that I might have. And we also notice that all of our experience requires time. Time is lapsing any moment we're having an experience. You can't possibly imagine having an experience without time going by, right? So that's an impossible thing. Time has to be there for all of our experiences, right? And then the other one is space. But now this is interesting because we only need space when we're thinking that an object is a physical object. I don't need a space to conceive of love. It's an abstract concept. I mean, I know, I've seen love on a lonely highway. It was a sign that love this way. That's a joke. That was not funny. No one laughed at that one. The song, I found love on a lonely highway. No, so forget it. My songs are not your songs. It's just, multiple generations back, I guess.
Who's the artist?
Who's the artist? Needs not even touched. Don't know for sure. I can find it out, but let's not. Well, that's a rabbit hole. That's not just a squirrel. That's a rabbit hole. Okay. So time and space. I need space. I have to be able to conceive of space. And remember, David Hume is concerned about, contiguity and time and space, right? How do you explain it? Well, the interesting thing about space is space isn't out there. Don't think of space as out there. It's because remember, it's all in here, right? And so what I have to realize is that I am the one that orients everything in space, my experience of space. It comes from my perception of space. By the way, what's kind of cool when you talk about Einstein. I think I've mentioned, right, the way we diagram this, thanks to Einstein, the observer is right here, right? Is the source of, at least in this model, remember the whole model-dependent realism thing that we talked about right at the beginning of the course, right? In this model, you're the focal point of all of experience, and so future time is within the speed of light per second, per minute, per hour, per month for you, right? And your past is the speed of light per second, per minute, as you go back into your past. And so this is you as the observer at any particular moment. And notice that is exactly what Kant is giving us in this particular case. So when you hear that Einstein had a secret source, I think it was Kant. Pardon?
I said it was Marilyn Monroe. We went over this.
Oh yes, wasn't that fun? Although I'm sorry about I had never seen the whole movie, and I didn't realize I was discovering a much bigger clip. And I don't want to follow where that went. But the fun part is where she's on the floor with the light in the train, and she's saying, "Get out of the road!" It's just funny. Okay, so time and space, those are both our consciousness imposing a structure on our experience, the phenomenon. So for Aristotle, all of experience was explained by the characteristics of the things, and he gave those categories. Remember the Aristotelian categories. Remember, he had the categories of substance, quantity, quality. Everything has these characteristics, right? When you're studying them, right? But now here's what Kant calls his Copernican revolution in thought, which is actually kind of weird because Copernicus, if you recall, was the one that gave us the solar-centered model, right? And if you think, well, wait a minute, that shifted things away from us. That's one of the narcissistic hurts. We're not the center of the universe. Shoot, right? Says everyone, right? But instead, the sun is the center of this particular model. Well, Kant is saying that yes, we are the center, because all of these categories that Aristotle was saying were characteristics of the things are actually categories in our mind that we're imposing on our experience of things. So when we go to Kant's categories, I was oh, there. Okay, so here we go. So notice he revises Aristotle and gives us basically all the same, except Kant liked 12, so he made it 12 instead of 10. That's just, you know, weird German thing. Prussian, actually. Although, remember, Kant his family was originally from Scotland. We'll figure that one out, right? But, so he's got all these different categories, and these are categories that are in our minds that we're imposing then on our experience. So the categories that explain how everything can be understood, and this is metaphysics, right? So this is how his transcendental method enables us to say, yes, Hume, there are grounds for having a metaphysics. This is what we're doing. We have to transcend that limit.